With the addition of the Sims 2 Nightlife, community lots were more available and open to us than ever before. We had nightclubs, restaurants, shops, and more all available to send our Sims to. Yet, there remained a fairly large elephant in the room. What if we wanted our Sims to own those businesses? Now, for those of you just discovering my channel, my name is Michael, and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, plots, and share my thoughts on video games in the life simulation gaming space. And today we are indeed talking about the Sims 2 Open for Business, and I am going to continue to review it. And yes, there is a bit of a quality jump to this video from the last video when I was reviewing Nightlife, excuse me. It's too bad that The Sims 2 and The Sims 3 has similar titles for those two expansion packs. But anyways, yeah, a big reason for the bit of a quality jump there is just because I had recorded some of those Sims 2 reviews months back. Like, I believe I might have even recorded them in late October or even November. So yeah, my apologies for that, I guess, but hey, let's celebrate the evolution here. But yeah, like I did with my previous reviews, I will be looking at the following criteria and scoring it out of 10 just based on my opinion and playing experience with The Sims 2 Open for Business. And that includes its concept, innovation, gameplay features, the impact on the current franchise, and the impact on future Sims franchises. And then based on those scores, I'm really going to throw each of those games and expansion packs on a tier list that I have created like I have done in the past. And today, like I mentioned before, we're covering the Sims 2 Open for Business expansion pack. And so this is an expansion pack that is held in high regard by the Simmer community. And I plan to really question to determine whether Open for Business is overrated or overhyped, or if it is indeed a hidden gem that doesn't get its time to shine or enough credit that it is due. And so with that said, let's begin by talking about Open for Business's concept. And this time in the Sims 2 franchise, our Sims have been living it up and partying like crazy with both the University and Nightlife expansion packs, having a focus on partying and socializing. And even though at this point in the franchise, our Sims could lead very fulfilling lives, EA decided that it was time to put the focus back on work. And in this case specifically, the ability to run a small business. Now at this point in the Sims 2 franchise, Simmers were crying for pets or seasons, begging EA every day for a pets or seasons expansion pack to release. So when Open for Business was announced initially, it ended up receiving a lukewarm reception, to say the very least. I would even go as far as to say that it might have confused some Simmers when it came to understanding the direction that the franchise was going in. Although I'm not necessarily someone that thinks that EA should rush in to deliver an expansion pack demanded by the public without fully developing its concept, like we have seen recently, I think that Open for Business really didn't get the praise it deserved because Simmers were desperate at this point for a Pets or a Seasons expansion pack. I mentioned the community reaction here because I think that the concept of Open for Business was honestly overshadowed by the players' disappointment that it wasn't Pets or Seasons. And I would criticize that Open for Business was positioned to release at the wrong time, a time where there was a daily forum post begging for Pets or Seasons. Now, I wasn't one of those. I also think that the concept of Open for Business confused player expectations in that they already had a downtown sub-neighborhood and that they were getting gameplay that no one was really asking for at the time. When looking at Open for Business from 2024, the year that I am recording this video, I realize now that the concept itself kind of felt like an offshoot of an urban-themed expansion pack. And I also think that the idea of a shopping district existing as a sub-neighborhood kind of confused players as well, since a shopping district would be interpreted as a mall or like a set of strip malls for North American players, which is their majority of their demographic. I can't help but feel that the Open for Business concept was derived as an offshoot from the EA team that were ideating around nightlife and concluding that the workspace deserved its own expansion pack, as the theme itself with Open for Business feels very secondary to its actual gameplay, which ends up being an okay problem to have, and I'll kind of get more into that later on in this review. Looking back though, like from 2024, looking at Open for Business right now in this day and age, and putting the nostalgia aside and the enjoyment of playing the game aside, because don't get me wrong, I'm going to give it a lot of points there for that. I honestly would have liked to have seen the concept of Open for Business taken further. On one hand, the concept feels like the workplace answer to Nightlife's fun party atmosphere expansion pack. And specifically, I think that the neighborhood of Blue Water Village was really more of an afterthought, and labeling it as a shopping district and calling it a day without a more comprehensively developed neighborhood is where a lot of potential was lost on the delivery of the concept. For example, Blue Water Village could have been delivered as more of a beach town with a bustling high street, or if they wanted to make it a true shopping district that their target demographic would understand it as, EA could have delivered us a neighborhood that featured strip malls, or maybe even a large mall itself. Or perhaps, like, if they wanted to take a more international approach, they could have delivered that neighborhood with a focus on the marketplace. And to me, like, it felt like the neighborhood of Blue Water Village was functioning more like a sleepy suburb than something that really encourages Open for Business gameplay, but that is just my perspective on it. I will say though that the neighborhood of Blue Water Village is actually very well done. It just lacks vision and concept. And so when it comes to the concept of Open for Business, I think that the confusion and bad timing of it and the missing out on the potential of making the neighborhood something that encourages Open for Business gameplay pegs it at a 7 out of 10, since I feel like the theme of Blue Water Village is generally confusing, and calling it a shopping district just kind of added to that confusion. Plus, it was just like poorly timed in the release of their expansion packs, and I know for a fact that EA plans out their expansion pack releases ahead of time. I think that like if EA were to go back and redo their franchise, they could have considered like developing Nightlife, Open for Business, and Apartment Life as some sort of a 3-part urban expansion pack set. Each of those expansion packs have enough gameplay content to warrant their own expansion packs on their own, but none of their themes really seem to make sense outside of an urban setting. Or at least each of their concepts could have been better suited using an urban setting as a backdrop as opposed to sub-neighborhoods like Belladonna Valley and Blue Water Village. But I'll expand more on that like when I actually get to the Apartment Life review, which will be at the end of this little mini series here. And in this case, like Open for Business really suffered from the concept not enhancing the gameplay features. And for those that hold Open for Business dear to their hearts, have no fear, because next we are discussing its innovation, and this is where Open for Business really starts to earn a lot of points for me. If it sounds like I'm being a little overly critical of Open for Business, I really don't feel like I am. I feel that in comparison to the Sims 1 review series that I did, I was being very forgiving. In fact, when it came to The Sims 1 pioneering the life simulation genre as we know it today. And so when we have a direct franchise that is, you know, quote unquote, the sequel to The Sims 1, I am moving that bar a little higher and critically looking at it and analyzing the game in of itself, putting nostalgia aside, putting good memories aside and all that, and really questioning trying to question objectively, I should say, whether fundamentally it is a good game or not. So if I did sound a little harsh during the concept section, you know, I am planning to keep that same energy with every expansion pack going forward, because I don't think that Open for Business was the only expansion pack within the Sims 2 franchise that relied a little too heavily on or didn't explore enough of the themes when it came to their sub-neighborhoods. But anyways, we are in the innovation section right now. And so yeah, despite like what I criticize as bad timing for Open for Business, the first and obvious new player experience that Open for Business delivers on is the idea of having your Sims actually own and run a small business. So that in of itself is a first. for all Sims franchises up until this point. And peering into the future, like it's one of the only expansion packs that tangibly aims to give players that business owning experience. But I'll expand upon that a little later on in this video. To be frank, like in my opinion, the Simmer community at the time of Open for Business's release wasn't ready for the genius of Open for Business, since they were too busy worried about pets and seasons to actually enjoy Open for Business for what it is. So with running your business, you also had to manage your employees and their needs as well. And there were also like business perks that helped empower players along the way. So these were all new systems that were introduced with this expansion pack. Again, brand new game experience. This franchise, this expansion pack alone really looks to evolve and give players new expectations, new player experiences. And so yeah, they did it really well, and they really brought something new to the franchise that players have never seen before, despite it being badly timed, or in my opinion, despite them like not exploring the themes of having a shopping district further. So this is really like a case where EA went with a completely new idea with Open for Business that delivered on offering new gameplay experiences really never seen before in the Simmer community. Gameplay experiences that nobody was really requesting at the time, if I remember correctly. And so these gameplay experiences being that would end up resurfacing actually as community asks fors in the future franchises to come, like in The Sims 3 or The Sims 4. And The Sims 3 sort of delivers on those community ask fors in the form of the Sims 3 store, but you know, I gotta save that for another future review of some sort come that time. And so yeah, with that, like in the innovation section, I'm just going to keep it short here and just give Open for Business the 10 out of 10 that they deserve, since they really brought a completely new gaming experience for Simmers. They expanded everybody's imaginations, if I'm going to be quite honest. And yeah, I was very impressed with the fact that the franchise in of itself, like with University and with Open for Business, is not looking to elevate old experiences that players had with The Sims 1. They're actually bringing new experiences that Simmers would enjoy and come to look forward to in future franchises. So yeah, the 10 out of 10 is well deserved in the innovation category. I just don't see how it couldn't get a 10 out of 10 in this category for that. So yeah, let's actually talk about the execution of the gameplay though. So let's move into the gameplay section. Okay, when looking at the Open for Business expansion pack, it really has a lot of moving parts to it. So with Open for Business, players got introduced to owning a business, running a business. They got introduced to new business types, including retail, salons, and ticketed businesses. They got a whole new sub-neighborhood being Blue Water Village. There was a whole talent badge system that was introduced with this expansion pack. There was a business perk system in of itself. Of course, who can forget Servo and how handy those robots are? And with that, the expansion pack also delivered on adding over 125 new items. So the thing with Open for Business is that even though it had a lot of moving parts to it, like, you know, I'm thinking from a programming and technical perspective, I would easily say that Open for Business was one of the most complicated expansion packs out there. However, in my opinion, the Open for Business gameplay was executed fairly flawlessly. Like, they did a phenomenal job actually executing on complicated concepts. Again, this is an expansion pack where I felt like it ran without any problems or without any major problems to my best knowledge, or at least for me it did. And I don't recall other players saying that they experienced a lot of glitches with Open for Business either, unless of course they've stacked their games with CC from all kinds of websites, because that makes an impact too if you can't run your game. So, but yeah, overall, I just felt like Open for Business ran smoothly for players, generally speaking. But if you had like a bad experience with the Open for Business gameplay and you didn't have like a bunch of CC downloaded in your game, feel free to drop that comment below. But I really didn't see a whole lot of big problems with it. Open for Business also made it possible for Simmers to save their games on a community lot, which is actually huge. Whereas like we never had that feature before. And so this is incredibly handy for those of us who have ever spent hours in a game and needed to go back to the home lot to save, or have had our games crash on a community lot, erasing all of our progress, or have our games crash like on the loading screen, which is even more frustrating in my opinion. And then of course there was the ever so infamous door locking feature, which even in later franchises doesn't always work. I don't think that the door locking features were ever tested properly, as I could never seem to get them to work as intended, especially if I was trying to run some sort of a home business, or at least like I needed more options to restrict Sims from accessing certain rooms. So it was very much a system that I found a lot of frustration with playing with Open for Business. And it's actually like with the door locking system, it's a system that I would like to see abandoned in life simulation games. I would rather have some sort of an area paint system where you paint certain areas and, you know, certain Sims are allowed or certain Sims are not allowed and all that. So that is a system I would be more open-minded to, because I've seen this door locking system, well, I've played with it in Open for Business and then later on in later franchises like in The Sims 3, and it just never seems to work the way that it is intended to work. So, you know, I wasn't impressed with the door locking system. But what does deserve special mentioning is that the work that they put into the UI menus for the business perks and for the business lot buttons in the top right of your screen, it was all very well done. Easy to use for players and easily understandable. I feel like video game developers have a lot of leeway when it comes to offering business gameplay, since you can introduce very complicated business concepts that just go way over your head if you so chose to. With the UI menus and the way that the business button in the corner of the screen worked for players, I felt like players weren't overwhelmed by trying to run their Sims business, and that they could find success using the data that was provided. Data, mind you, which was very simplified for this very purpose. And I feel like that is a huge win for the gameplay. One downside to the business perks was that you can only get 10 perks. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I would aim to max out 2 out of the 5 categories of the perks, since the benefits of the final perks from each of the categories was always great. I really wish that you could have gotten at least 15 perks, or maybe even 12 or 13 perks as well, just so that you're able to get just that you're able to get the most out of the system, instead of just like maxing out 2 categories or being mediocre at pretty much all of them. You could pick and choose a couple of extra ones here and there. The Open for Business expansion pack also didn't limit you to just like running businesses that sold products. Rather, you could also run a salon business, or you could have the ticketing machine, so that Sims that are paying to enjoy your community lot, such as one would for a bar or a nightclub. So there were a lot more options there, and even then you didn't even have to run your business from a community lot, since this expansion pack allows players to have home businesses, which is something that really goes above and beyond what I was expecting. One gameplay downside to that though was that if you were playing a household, you could not visit another Sims home business lot. So that was one thing that I wish that they did allow. And I also forgot to mention that you could also run restaurants if you had the Nightlife expansion pack installed, so there was some cross expansion pack convergence there as well. Convergence that players were asking for, and also something that I feel adds a lot of gameplay to your game. But yeah, not being able to visit other Sims home business lots wasn't really great, and not something that I felt was, I felt like they sort of, they didn't execute the home business idea perfectly by limiting us from not visiting other home business lots. And even if you only wanted to sell items like in a retail style business, like the expansion pack made it possible to sell anything. So you weren't limited to just like selling flowers or robots or what have you got from the new badges that they introduced. you could set up your store so that you also sold furniture as well. So that was really a gameplay feature that I felt went above and beyond what the players were expecting, and something that I wouldn't expect EA to deliver on as well. So they did a really great job overall with the gameplay. I'm just nitpicking a few things here and there. And also, like, with the servo gameplay as well, I felt that that was really well done. I like how it was tied into the robotics badge. In general, I loved how the servos function, and that they were more than just NPCs from The Sims 1. They were actually interactable. You can control the servos and you can have them lead a whole life of their own. I thought that it was really well done for the servos. Needless to say, like, I will give Open for Business a 9 out of 10 on the gameplay. I'm only docking it a couple of points here. I'm only docking it a single point for the door locking mechanic just not working as intended. I also didn't like that you couldn't visit home businesses on like home lots. I feel like that was another thing that almost made it an 8 out of 10, honestly, but I want to be nice here. I want to be nice here, and I also just feel like the gameplay experience overall is something worthy of a 9 out of 10. And yeah, I also wanted to take a point away for the perks as well, and just like not giving players enough flexibility with the business perks as you got it, because I just felt like players just needed more points for the business perks as their business gained ranks. So that's why I'm just giving it a 9 out of 10. I feel like it was pretty much like great in terms of the gameplay. I just felt like it just missed the mark on a few things here and there that just needed some small tweaks. So yeah, with that said, let's talk about Open for Business's impact on the rest of the Sims 2 franchise. So one of the reasons why I said that Open for Business feels more like an offshoot or a secondary idea that grew into its own from the Nightlife expansion pack is that it integrates so well with Nightlife that it really makes me suspicious that it was actually originally supposed to be a part of Nightlife's gameplay. Well, that's just me. The Sims 2 Nightlife gave us pretty much all of the businesses we could visit with our Sims, including restaurants, whereas Open for Business really gives players the opportunity to actually own those community lots and run them as businesses. And back in the day, when I would go to run restaurants, the integration between the two expansion packs content felt flawless to me, since I could run a restaurant using Open for Business and actually be successful with it. However, Open for Business also has like a heavy hand in influencing future expansion pack content by introducing a brand new skill badge system. Throughout the Sims 2 franchise, badges would be expanded upon in seasons and the free time expansion packs, and so this is really due to the badge system being a success in Open for Business, in my opinion. Open for Business also influenced the rest of the Sims franchise in that its presence had to be considered in future expansion packs. Well, what I mean by that is that future community lots introduced in future expansion packs would need the framework developed in order for Sims to own those lots as businesses. For example, EA would have to choose whether or not they wanted to make a pet store possible to own and run, or a pottery store by actually coating the shelves to be able to hold the pottery items if you had the free time expansion pack. It wouldn't be for a while after seasons and pets were released before players would really realize that Open for Business opened up a lot of possibilities in their playing experience. Even though players didn't realize it at the time, Open for Business held a significant influence over their gaming experience with the Sims 2 franchise. And for that, I am actually going to be really generous here, and I'm going to give it another 10 out of 10. Where I think Open for Business holds even more influence, however, is on future Sims franchises, even if they don't deliver on that Open for Business experience. So let's dive in and discuss that. Overall, I feel like Open for Business was never cherished and celebrated until we didn't have its gameplay features available to us anymore in future franchises. It was pretty much a case where we didn't know what we had until it was gone. This was especially evident in the Sims 3 franchise, where they started offering lots and sets in the Sims 3 store that clearly had gameplay reminiscent of Open for Business. There is even a world Midnight Hollow that essentially was based around this concept. They even sold a movie theater venue that had a Ticketmaster object that fundamentally functioned exactly the same as the one in Open for Business. None of these store items really functioned cohesively together, if I dare say so myself, and ironically, it seemed like the content offered in the Sims 3 store was some sort of a recycling bin for an expansion pack that never came to be. After downloading all of the business-themed lots and worlds from The Sims 3, all players were missing was really some UI screens and ways to track their business profits, or at least that's what it felt like to me. But back to Open for Business. In The Sims 2 Open for Business, like being able to own and run your own business smoothly in the expansion pack was something that players wanted after the fact, and in future franchises when that was taken away. Now, I really don't think it was until Seasons was released that players realized what a true gem that Open for Business was, and how it prompted Sims players everywhere to really think like, this is what's capable now, or can I actually own this as a business? So yeah, it helped to change the way that Simmers think, even in future franchises. We even see the idea of business ownership evolve a little bit in The Sims 3 with its rabbit hole buildings actually being ownable, either as a partner or as a full-on owner. And I believe that you can also own businesses in The Sims 4 as well. Again, feel free to comment on that one since I actually don't play The Sims 4 myself, so I really wouldn't know how those gameplay features and functions actually work. But the gameplay feature of actually running your business was yet another innovative idea that doesn't get talked about enough or attempted properly enough in future franchises. I can really only speak on The Sims 3, but in general, future franchises really fumbled this kind of gameplay, something that Open for Business got right the first time, and with those fumbles in future franchises, it helped to create more dichotomy within the Simmer community, looking back on the fact that Open for Business delivered it properly the first time. Open for Business as an expansion pack not only showed us that business ownership is possible, it showed Simmers everywhere that running a business is also possible with the right game mechanics that future franchises are constantly compared to. It serves as the reference point for owning businesses. And so for establishing itself as that reference point for future franchises, I'm giving Open for Business a 10 out of 10 on its impact on future franchises. I just feel like no future franchise has done it right, and whenever some sort of business ownership concept or gameplay feature has been explored and executed, it always gets compared back to The Sims 2 Open for Business. When adding up all of the scores together, what it does is it brings the final score of the Open for Business expansion pack to a 46 out of 50, putting it in the nearly perfect category. The only aspects of Open for Business that really kept it from getting an actual perfection score is that Open for Business concept was really undermined by a slightly confusing underlying theme and that I discussed in the concept section, and I also felt like it didn't execute perfectly on all of its gameplay mechanics, as the door locking mechanism was honestly a pain in the ass to use for home businesses, and there also just needed to be more business perk points. It felt very limiting. And I've already talked about Blue Water Village just having a theme that was A, confusing, and B, I don't feel like they explored the potential of that fully enough within it. But hey, this expansion pack is honestly nearly perfect and an absolute staple within the Sims 2 franchise. And so far, like, Open for Business is indeed the best expansion pack in the series according to the criteria and the scoring that I am using, and I feel right about that, as it was terribly underrated by the community, and it's something that continues to serve as a reference point to this day. In my opinion, it was almost like it was built ahead of its time. If I were in charge of developing Open for Business, and if I could go back in time and all that, which would never happen in my wildest dreams, by the way, but I would have packaged Open for Business along with Apartment Life and Nightlife as some sort of an urban living expansion pack set. This would help to eliminate any confusing themes and backdrops used by Open for Business and Apartment Life, and it would also make sense to have one larger sub-neighborhood. And I think that it would have been cool if the downtown sub-neighborhood introduced in nightlife could have just been expanded upon more to include both like open for business and apartment life's gameplay features under a common theme under a common urban theme as that umbrella, as opposed to just like overwhelming players with sub-neighborhoods. I think towards the end of the franchise, it almost felt like there were too many sub-neighborhoods in a way, but I'll kind of explore that more towards the end of this series here. And that's just my thinking on it. So yeah, if you enjoyed this review and my thoughts on The Sims 2 Open for Business, then feel free to like this video and consider subscribing. Furthermore, I just want to take a moment to really say thank you for watching, and that you are more than welcome to share your own thoughts and experiences on The Sims 2 Open for Business in the comment section below. Up next, I will be reviewing The Sims 2 Pets. Now, I wasn't as hot on The Sims 2 Pets as I was with The Sims 1 Unleashed, and I'll explain why in that upcoming review sometime whenever I film and write it. But again, I just want to take another moment here to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.